Indian Lake. It's 8 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Northern Light for Friday, September 29th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
We continue our coverage on Student Mental Health Week. Many teenage New Yorkers are struggling with their mental health, especially since the pandemic.
State leaders say they're making gains on helping them, and a nationwide mental health campaign for student athletes could be a game changer.
I used to be very, if I made one mistake, I'm kicking the ground, I'm getting in my head. Usually the rest of the game, it just goes downhill from there. And I'll just take a sec, pick some grass up off the ground, sniff it, center yourself a little bit, and kind of reset.
Also on the show, John Warren checks the trail conditions for us in the Adirondacks this weekend.
And we'll hear from two North Country students who were invited to the White House this week for its summit on building greener communities.
To hear how other people are approaching this issue, engaging their communities, building resilience in their communities, I think is really exciting. And if we have something to offer to the group as well, I think that's great.
All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by the Depot Theater, Westport, a professional equity theater in the Adirondacks, celebrating its 45th season, depottheater.org. And by the Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to Three Alliance, which is dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life, adirondackbt3.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. The U.S. is headed towards a government shutdown this weekend. If Congress fails to pass new spending bills by Sunday, all non-essential government functions will stop until they do. In New York, over 70,000 federal employees would be furloughed or would have to work without a paycheck. That includes military service members, of which there are about 15,000 in the North Country at Fort Drum near Watertown. Data from the group Advocate Drum estimates that Fort Drum puts about $6 million per day into the local economy. Spokesperson David Zembeck told the Watertown Daily Times that a shutdown would impact military families, but also local businesses as service members cut back on spending. Other government functions affected would include the SNAP Food Assistance Program, food, water, and workplace safety inspections, and longer wait times at the airport, as TSA agents are federal employees.
New York State is banning schools from using facial recognition technology after a report concluded that risks outweigh potential benefits. In 2020, a school district in Western New York adopted a facial recognition system. The district said they would use it to detect sex offenders, disgruntled employees, and weapons. Not long after, parents filed a court challenge, and the state adopted a moratorium on facial recognition technology. A subsequent state report found that risks to student privacy outweighed potential security benefits. Education Commissioner Betty Rosa issued an order banning facial recognition technology from use in schools on Wednesday. The order leaves decisions on digital fingerprinting and other biometric technology up to districts.
The Department of Defense is launching a new child care assistance program for military families in New York. Military families will receive a maximum of $1,800 per month per child to offset the cost of child care at licensed providers. This is a federal program, but New York is the first state where it's being rolled out. 48,000 families will be eligible for the assistance, including thousands of families at the military base at Fort Drum.
The North Country had two representatives at the White House yesterday for its summit on building climate-resistant communities. Those representatives weren't elected officials or CEOs. They were two students who both serve on the Youth Climate Advisory Board of the Wild Center in Tupper Lake. They were some of the youngest attendees at the summit, but they've already had big impacts on their home communities. Amy Feiereisel reports.
I spoke with 21-year-old Andrew Fagerheim and 20-year-old Cedar Young before they headed to the White House. They were at their hotel in Washington, D.C., and they were all smiles and pent-up energy.
Definitely excited, a little nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Summit on Building Climate-Resilient Communities brought together about 70 people, including local, state, and tribal leaders, and these two young people, to talk about community-driven climate resilience strategies. Here's Andrew Fagerheim.
And we're really excited to be able to speak to some of the ways that we've seen that in upstate New York.
They got those invites through another summit, the Youth Climate Summit, which the Wild Center in Tupper Lake has been hosting since 2006. Each year, it brings hundreds of upstate students together to talk about climate change, justice, and activism. Fagerheim and Young both attended those summits as high schoolers. Young is from Saranac Lake.
This program is honestly the reason that I'm interested in climate work to begin with. Like, this is where I learned about the problem, and this is where I learned where I could be in the solution.
Fagerheim is a native of Homer, just south of Syracuse.
And I feel, for young people especially, this is something we're going to be dealing with for the rest of our lives. This is where I first learned about climate change, and also where I first felt like I could do something that made a difference.
After attending the Tupper Lake Summit, both Young and Fagerheim were instrumental in getting their hometowns certified as climate-smart communities. That's a state program that helps local governments take action to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. As teenagers, they worked in their villages to get them certified. Young was a student representative on Saranac Lake's task force.
Getting to learn about how local government functions, and that really cemented my interest and passion in policy making and that sort of thing.
Because of that work, Young and Fagerheim were invited to attend the House Summit on Building Climate-Resilient Communities. They were accompanied on their trip by 30-year-old Hannah Barg, who works at the Wild Center.
I'm kind of being the climate mom for this group.
But Barg didn't go to the summit at the White House with them, and she thinks that's important.
Cedar and Andrew are the representatives who got invited to this event, and that I'm really just here as a support role. It makes me feel really honored to be with you today.
Before they headed off to the White House, I asked what they were most excited for.
I'm really looking forward to getting to meet so many people from around the country who are doing climate work on different levels. I haven't really had the chance before to do such a professional event and get to network with such professional people in all fields of, I guess, the world because it's going to be scientists, tribal leaders, government officials.
I think like Cedar, I'm just really excited to meet the other people there and to learn from them. So to hear how other people are approaching this issue, engaging their communities, building resilience in their communities, I think is really exciting. And if we have something to offer to the group as well, I think that's great.
Fagerheim and Young were some of the youngest attendees at the summit. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
And to see pictures of the students in D.C., check out the online story at ncpr.org. The mayor of Burlington will not seek re-election next spring. That's according to Vermont Public. Miro Weinberger has served 4 terms as Burlington's mayor. He was the first Democrat to lead Burlington in over 30 years when he beat out Republican Kurt Wright in 2012. While Weinberger has been in office, Burlington has seen a host of major development projects, including the renovation of City Hall Park and the construction of the Downtown Transit Center. The city also balanced its books and improved its credit rating. Weinberger says that's because of conservative budgeting and a prudent revenue increase. But Weinberger's tenure has not been free of criticism or scandal. A large redevelopment project of a downtown mall was bogged down by delays for nearly a decade. In recent years, the mayor was harshly criticized for several controversies to do with city policing and racial equity.
The Glens Falls Police Department arrested 16 juveniles over the last month and 5 of their parents. In a press release, the department says they received numerous complaints this summer of teenagers recklessly riding their bikes through traffic in downtown Glens Falls and yelling at drivers. The arrests were on misdemeanor and felony charges of assault and gang assault. The 5 adults arrested were parents of the teenagers charged with failing to exercise control over the minors.
Canton's Village Board of Trustees has decided on a short-term plan to try to fix its food waste pilot program. Village residents can still drop off food scraps at the Lincoln Street site. A local composting service will pick up the waste weekly. Village trustee Klaus Prom says this new plan will help the village figure out if this is a service they should continue.
Now, how much material and who's using it is part of the data we'll be gathering that's part of this is to figure that out.
The village will use new locked bins to keep out non-compostable trash. Users will either scan a QR code or text a number for the access code, which will be changed regularly. The changes will cost the village around $3,000. Trustees said they'll need to find grant funding if people want the program to continue after the 3 months.
Listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 11 minutes past 8. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up in just a bit, John Warren will check trail conditions for us in this first weekend of October. That's in just a few minutes right here on Northern Light.
Dennis Gallagher on guitar, Martha Gallagher on harp out of Keene. Check out more of their music as part of our Underscore project. Visit us online, ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to 3 Alliance, dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life, AdirondackBT3.org, and Adirondack Arts and Entertainment, an online resource for events in the Adirondack region, covering galleries and the performing arts, dining, and more, AdirondackA&E.com.
Many teenage New Yorkers are struggling more with their mental health, especially since the coronavirus pandemic. This week, public media stations statewide are focusing their reporting for Teen Mental Health Week. Karen DeWitt takes a look at what the state government is doing to alleviate the crisis.
Governor Kathy Hochul and the legislature invested $1 billion into mental health services in the current state budget. Part of that money is earmarked for services specifically for teenagers. Health leaders, including the U.S. Surgeon General, say a recent spike in mental health challenges among young people has had a devastating effect.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you.
The governor spoke at a summit on youth mental health back in June. It followed a 3-month-long listening tour hosted by Hochul and led by a team of mental health experts, where over 200 youth spoke and shared their struggles. The governor blames COVID pandemic-related lockdowns and the influence of social media for the increase.
Teenagers are facing a crisis like never seen before in the history of this country. There was a time when it was always binge drinking, drunk driving, smoking were the greatest evils. Today it's so much deeper. It's anxiety, it's depression, and it's suicide. If you look at the statistics, they're absolutely staggering. And it's just a reminder that we're failing our children.
She says that according to the CDC, 42% of high school students feel persistently sad or hopeless, and 22% say they have considered suicide. The numbers are even higher among LGBTQ youth. This year's state budget includes $10 million in grants to suicide prevention programs targeting high-risk youths and a $20 million expansion of mental health services in schools by increasing Medicaid reimbursement rates for school-based mental health clinics. New York's Commissioner of Mental Health, Dr. Anne Marie Sullivan, says the goal is to have a mental health clinic in every school in the state. Speaking to public television's New York Now, she says 1,000 clinics exist now. Another 200 to 300 are in the works.
They can talk to a mental health professional. That youth can get some services right there in the school in a non-stigmatizing way. So that's a major initiative to have those services available.
She says there's also a 24-hour counseling and crisis line reached by calling or texting 988. Those who need more care are referred to a hospital, a clinic, or a therapist. She acknowledges, though, that there is a severe shortage of qualified therapists to meet the need. Sullivan says her agency is working with schools to encourage career paths in mental health treatment.
We've already been talking to some high schools to let us come in and speak with them, and colleges, community colleges. So I think we really need to talk with social workers when they graduate. What do you want to do? You know, there's different things you can do with the social worker, or nurses, or physicians, whether you want to become a psychiatrist. So it's engaging people.
She says the state also offers student loan repayments to doctors who want to specialize in psychiatry and to nurse practitioners who want to work in the mental health field. Sullivan says this year's budget also includes money for partial loan repayments for psychologists, social workers, and mental health counselors, as long as they agree to work in a public health clinic for a period of time. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Some student athletes across the country are joining a shift in how they think about mental health. A nationwide campaign erupted after a college lacrosse player took her own life. Students are dismantling the stereotypical jock image and changing the game on mental wellness in sports. WXXI's Noelle Evans reports from Rochester. This story deals with self-harm and suicide, and it lasts about 7 minutes.
We are on the rugby field at Nazareth University. Here, Tyreek Thomas is running drills with his teammates. This year, they are competing against Ivy League schools like Brown University in the highest level division, D1A.
Playing rugby, it helps improve my character as a person because, you know, when you play a game, you make mistakes, but being able to embrace that stuff, you get to build your confidence outside of rugby.
Last year, he injured his knee while making a tackle. As he was recovering, one of his teammates put out a note to the rugby team about a club called Morgan's Message. Thomas decided to check it out.
That session was mostly focusing on like mental health. And as the meeting went on, we also spoke about that, like how does having an injury affect you mentally, and like what do you do to help cope with that?
Quick water. The club at Nazareth is one of nearly 1,400 Morgan's Message ambassador programs around the country. The programs are a place where students lead conversations about mental health. It's one of several grassroots organizations aimed at preventing suicides among student athletes. Right now is a crucial moment for it. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among college students in the U.S. According to American College Health Association data, suicide rates among 15 to 24-year-olds in the country have risen 51% in the last decade. That club meeting was the first time Thomas had really talked about mental health. It kind of went against the concept of masculinity that he grew up with.
For me, I would probably say that guys or men shouldn't necessarily open up too much because then you may be seen as weak. You're supposed to maintain a strong frame and be masculine, but that's not the right thing.
When did that change for you?
Probably my first year here. I was feeling kind of overwhelmed with practice and school. I just had a whole mental breakdown.
He told his coach and teammates about it, and they responded by saying,
"We're here if you need anything. Don't be afraid to speak up about something," and just making me feel comfortable and knowing that there's people out there who cares about me and just wants to see me be good.
That's the kind of culture Thomas's teammate Pat Notaro is working to bring to rugby and other sports on campus.
You don't just wake up one day and you're depressed or all of a sudden you're anxious. It's just kind of little things that build on top of themselves.
Notaro is the student ambassador for the Morgan's Message Club at Nazareth. He's the one who encouraged Thomas to attend. Little things that he's learned from the club, like grounding exercises, are becoming part of his team's culture.
I used to be very, if I made one mistake, I'm kicking the ground, I'm getting in my head. Usually the rest of the game, it just goes downhill from there. And I'll just take a sec, pick some grass up off the ground, sniff it, center yourself a little bit, and kind of reset. It's hard to keep yourself serious when people are telling you to sniff some grass.
Morgan's message has had a transformative effect on Notaro and Thomas, which is the goal of the program. But its genesis comes from a fatal tragedy. The club's namesake is Morgan Rogers. She was a nationally recognized lacrosse player from Virginia. A scouting video from 2014 shows Rogers performing levels above the competition.
Goal by number 21, Morgan Rogers. That is Morgan's 200th career goal.
I still hear her laugh. It's absolutely contagious.
Megan, Bernie, and Rogers became friends and teammates as sixth graders.
Anyone whose path she crossed, you would walk away smiling. She was goofy. She was always dancing.
Rogers went on to play at an elite university, but in a sudden event, her sports career came to an end.
That's kind of where the spiral occurred.
Bernie says no one knew how badly Rogers was hurting emotionally. Not her family, not her friends. So they can only speculate based on what they know about her and her situation.
It's not one of those things that you can just see because it's an internal battle. She didn't know what her life would be like without having lacrosse because she came from a really small town and she was the one who made it. You know, she was kind of that symbol of this is possible.
200, Morgan.
And then in one moment, that identity and that life's purpose was ripped away. She blew out her knee, meniscus, ACL, and MCL. A year and a half later, she died by suicide.
It was shock, absolute shock.
Bernie is now the communications director of the Morgan's Message organization. They provide education and resources for clubs like the one Notaro leads at Nazareth.
We're not clinical in nature, but we have a medical advisory board that inform all of our presentations that we give or the resources we give to these students who have chapters on their campuses. I think the most special part about what we do is the fact that the ambassador program is peer-to-peer.
She says that kind of approach is crucial to breaking down barriers built by stigma, which she believes played a significant role in Rogers' death.
It's important also for programs to be put in place for coaches to learn about mental health and how to coach players that may have these underlying difficulties or even ones that may just present because something's happening.
Down the hill from the rugby field at Nazareth University, Gail Mann coaches the women's soccer team. Mann is on the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and she's known for taking a mental health first approach in her coaching. Over the summer, she had her athletes keep a journal. Recently, she's brought in a licensed mental health coach to talk with the team. It stems in part from her own experience.
We had a player pass away in 2000, and it really affected the team very negatively, obviously, an extremely emotional moment. So I think that's when I started recognizing how important it was to just have conversations about your feelings, right?
Do you see a difference in the way players play when you take this different approach?
I think they play with maybe less fear.
On a grassroots level, Bernie hopes Morgan's message will help more students become well-versed in mental health awareness in ways she wasn't taught in school. In turn, she says that could contribute to a culture that reduces harm instead of creating it.
It's like, okay, what does it boil down to where you can get ahead of all this before all the other systematic issues that follow are failing? There can be something ahead of that where hopefully it can lessen the burdens and barriers to access.
In Rochester, I'm Noelle Evans for North Country Public Radio.
This story is part of a statewide public media initiative addressing teen mental health. Use the 988 hotline if you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis. You can also keep up with conversations and stories from throughout the region at our website, ncpr.org, or follow the station on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, John Warren checks the trail conditions for us on this first weekend of October. After that, we'll hear one ornithologist's letter to the wood pewee. That's coming up on Bird Note at 8:42. But first, Todd, is a look at the weather for us.
Clouds today, partly cloudy tomorrow, but then sunshine Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's going to feel more like summer next week with highs near 80 on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, even for some of the higher elevations of the Adirondacks and Tug Hill, highs upper 70s by the middle of next week. Today, clouds, highs upper 60s, low 70s, light winds out of the east, partly cloudy tonight, lows in the 40s and 50s tomorrow. Partly sunny, a high low 70s, and then sunny skies on Sunday with highs in the mid-70s. Right now, clouds, 57 degrees in Canton, and John Warren checks outdoor conditions for the Adirondacks for this weekend.
After a wet summer, the weather has been amazing recently, with warm temperatures and little rain. It will remain pleasant through the weekend. Sunrise will be at about 7:51 and sunset at about 6:38. The moon was full last night. Summit temperatures in the high peaks are expected to be in the mid-50s through the weekend. The foliage is now at midpoint throughout the central Adirondacks. Expect popular areas to be busy this weekend. Both High Peaks hiker shuttles are running from the Marcy Field parking area. Fridays through Sundays through October 15th, a DEC environmental educator will be stationed at a converted shuttle bus at the corner of Route 73 and Airport Road at Marcy Field. Water levels remain at their typically lower levels for this time of year. Stream crossing should not be a problem this weekend. The Hudson River is forecast to be a bit over 2.5 feet this weekend at North Creek, and the Racket River a bit over 4.5 at Piercefield. Lake Champlain has fallen to about 96.5 feet at the gauge above Whitehall. Water temperatures remain mostly in the lower to mid-60s. This would be a great weekend for a late-season paddle. All in all, it should be an excellent weekend for outdoor adventure. Those are the outdoor conditions in the Adirondacks this weekend. For North Country Public Radio, this is John Warren from the New York Almanac. Online at NewYorkAlmanac.com.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's just about 8:30. I'm Monica Sandreski here with Todd Moe, but we're going to end the show with a little bit of music, previewing a performance this weekend at the Edwards Opera House. This is Ben Gage and his song Tomorrow. He's performing tomorrow night as part of their singer-songwriter series. It's free. You can find out more at edwardsoperahouse.com. Again, this is his song Tomorrow.
Drinking my weight, staying up all night. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sure feel right. Been thinking about tomorrow. Thinking about tomorrow. Getting in fights, ain't pulling my blows. Yeah, they're gonna hang me everywhere I go. Ain't thinking about tomorrow. Thinking about tomorrow. I'm gonna wake up in the morning with a splitting head. Go back to bed till tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the big day. Yes, that's Ben Gage and his song Tomorrow. Again, he is performing at the Edwards Opera House tomorrow evening as part of their singer-songwriter series. It's a free show, and you can find out more at edwardsoperahouse.com.
Also, tomorrow, artist Georgianne Gaffney will unveil her A Bridge Over Water Under Main Street, this new mural, this trompe-l'oeil mural. It's going to be in Osceola Forks at the Tahawus Center. You can drive right around to the parking lot behind the Tahawus and the Osceola Theater. That starts at 4 o'clock. Meet the artist and see the mural tomorrow.
Too cool. That's going to be great. It's going to be great. That is it for the show for the day. Morning Edition continues in just a bit. And stick around after that for the Marketplace Morning Report coming up between 8:51 and 9 o'clock. I'm Monica Sandreski.
I'm Todd Moe. Thanks for listening. Be well.
Your people use a beautiful sight. Ain't thinking about tomorrow. Thinking about tomorrow.